I'm not a race car driver, but I've been super blessed to try a whole bunch of different things. Track racing, drag racing, drifting this year, and pretty much everything in between short of go-kart racing, which we will get into that. And I wanted to share a little thing as to like my opinion on some of it, because a lot of people have asked me, Alex, which type of racing is the best kind? It's honestly really expensive to do all of them at the same time. So I figured I would spend a little bit of time and talking about it, because the whole reason this channel exists is to like transparently talk about the ups, the downs, and everything in between, so that you can like honestly understand and look at what's worth it. If you want to go make it happen, what does it look like? I wanted to build cars and drive them and then tell you, don't do that. That's a bad idea. So from my opinion, I thought I'd chat a little bit about it. Okay, I'm AlexMartini with 2 underscores on Instagram, and today we're talking about cars. More specifically, which type of racing is the best / most fun from a little grassroots guy, that being me. So let's chat about it. By the way, if you drive, drift, or show, like tell me in the comments below, which one do you like the most and why? And what do you base it off of? Write that out, help other people out. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm gonna go through it. We're gonna start off with drifting. My experience with drifting has been really fresh. It's only a year long, I would say, that I've actively been doing it, and it's been an absolute blast. I broke all of these down into categories: driving, the community, the cost, the fun per dollar, and my biggest gripe with it personally. All of this is my opinion. Take it as a Midwest guy that's got too many cats. Everything should have a grain of salt with this, okay? But with that being said, the one thing I can say with drifting is the driving experience of it is awesome. You do not have to know the intricacies of a lot of things you would need to know in racing or drag racing that you have to do with drifting. Drifting is a social activity just as much as it is a driving activity, and it's a blast. You can't get a cheaper wheel-to-wheel experience than drifting. You can't get a more experience of like not knowing what the hell you're doing and people being okay with that than drifting. And that makes it an absolute treat. And with that comes the community. My experience in the community has been both with pro drivers, pro spec drivers, and then the grassroots guys. And seeing that whole dynamic kind of funnel around has been really interesting to me. I can say most of my experience with the community has been fantastic. There are, without a doubt, people, especially in the local scene, that are always cautious. We'll call them cautiously optimistic that I'm even there with a camera. They don't like the fact that they think I'm just there filming content for YouTube. Unfortunately for them, I'm filming content for YouTube because that content's going to you guys, so you can see what it's actually like. And if they don't like that, then they can kiss my ass, because I love the sport and I love the community, and me bringing a camera along with me allows me to share that experience with all of you. That has led to some interesting interactions with people that I've known for over a decade that never really liked that I brought awareness to certain things. And I have noticed that that's more of a thing in the drifting community. There is a little bit of gatekeeping that exists in there. Pro spec drivers are probably the most chill out of the entire group, and pro drivers are like not cool with you unless they know you and then you're cool with. So that's kind of been fun. I would say 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Awesome experience all around. The cost, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. Now, sure, tires can get expensive, but you can keep the sport affordable. My biggest issue with drifting has always just been that it feels a little bit like there's a social dynamic that can be weird at times. Like you have to climb that social ladder to be considered somebody that's like good. I don't really like that concept of it. And it doesn't exist that often. It's only just like in little things here and there. When you start getting into trying to introduce yourself to everyone, not everyone always wants to talk to you. So good news for them is I'm really good at just ramming my head into a wall and saying hi anyway. And mostly everybody's been fantastic. But let's talk about track racing, kind of like the antithesis. You like that word? You're welcome. I'll put the description up right now. Bring it to your English class, get extra credit. Track racing is insane. The driving experience, it cannot be beat. Like it is, how to explain it? Track racing is a more visceral experience than grassroots drifting so far. I'm sure if you're going sideways at 90 miles an hour, the world is different. But in terms of like an everyday person jumping into track racing, that excitement and that level of excitement is a little bit taller than what I think grassroots drifting can do so far for me. Again, it's just my opinion. Now, the community here is way tougher than the drifting community. And that has a lot to do with it being from like an age perspective. I look like I'm I'm 16 now. I look like I was 10 4 years ago, trust me. And people make a lot of stereotypical observations in track racing when they see faces like this. And it is kind of weird. And there is a very narrow line of what is deemed acceptable in this motorsport. Like in drifting, you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want to do. But in track racing, you kind of have to fit a certain mold to be more widely accepted into the greater number. Like it's almost cool to talk about how people don't like you in track racing. I don't really understand it. That's been my experience so far. Maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't, but that's just it. Now, the cost is insanely high. You have the car, which if you're gonna set up right, is probably gonna cost you realistically like $30,000. And then if you go to a track day, you have a lot of wear and tear on a lot of different things. Suspension bushings, bits, brakes, you know, the actual tires itself, a lot of things that can go wrong with your cooling system and things like that. With track racing, you are constantly stressing those elements to the maximum amount of capacity, but not letting anything break loose. So you're constantly putting a ton of stress on the car, which makes it really expensive. It's something that I think is romanticized, but I don't think it's the first choice for a lot of people. The fun per dollar factor is hard to do here. I think it's good. My biggest issue here was that the cost scales wildly in racing, track racing specifically. I don't know if this is weird to talk about, but I am gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about sim racing, because that still is kind of a motorsport sim racing thing. Like I'm convinced it can be in its own bucket. It's expensive to jump into. It takes a lot of time to get right. A ton of people do it. There's experience and a community behind it. I'm willing to say that that can be put as its own category in this conversation. And from my experience of getting into iRacing, but spending a lot of time on GT7, but really starting to transition into iRacing, I can say that the driving is fun. Getting a system where it does have all the bits and pieces you need to know that if you do something stupid, the car is going to behave stupidly is a blast. The community though, bunch of nerds, big gatekeeping nerds sometimes. I tell you what, I love the sim racing community when they help, and I want to throw them off a 2-story window, which means they won't die, but it'll hurt all the way down 95% of the time. Every time I've asked for help in terms of understanding sim racing, it's like I'm walking back into the forum days where people are like, this question just got asked, except there's no search bar. There's no historical way to look at the information. I'm sorry that you answered the question in 2017, bro. I'm asking the question again. It's not the best. I haven't had the greatest experience with it. And I will also say that iRacing and companies like it have tried their damnedest with like safety ratings and things like that to make it to punish people that don't drive like it's a simulation. I think it still has a long way to go, personally, because I'm still getting punted out of corners for no apparent reason. But the cost isn't that bad when considering it. I spent $3 grand on mine. It's a Next Level Racing sim rig. It's got Fanatec hub and got the Fanatec shift speed, 6-speed. It's got the Fanatec Hydro, and I bought it used. The TV I use is like a 42-inch curved. I was given to that. That was given to me for free. And then the iRacing computer that I'm playing on is a pre-built that I bought in 2021 from Best Buy for $1,600. So all in, if I only use the computer for sim racing, it's less than $5,000. Finally, drag racing. We had to do drag racing over at Wisconsin International Raceway, and I will say I absolutely love drag racing. You don't have to be good at it to have a smile on your face and have an absolute blast. You can take literally anything to an open track day and have an absolute treat. The community is the wildest, most random assortment of people I've ever met in my life. When I go in there, I'm gunning for a good time. And I always have a good time at drag events. I will say though, once you get into the competitive side of things, it is very different. There's way too much testosterone for me in that world, but the cost is low. And I think it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about timing. It teaches you a lot about throttle management. It teaches you a lot about your car. Drag racing is like the most understated thing in the car scene right now. And the fun per dollar value, I put it as moderate. The biggest issue, you don't drive that much. You're sitting in line for like 30 minutes to drive 12 seconds. And then you go back around, you sit in a line for 30 minutes to drive 12 seconds. So in terms of the amount of driving you can do, this is the worst one out of all of them. So what's my score all in? Again, this is all on my personal opinion. Drifting got an 8.5 for me. Track racing got an 8 for me. Drag racing, 6.5 out of 10. And sim racing got a 9 out of 10. I honestly think sim racing wins it for me, even though I do it like the least out of all of them, because it allows anyone to do anything. And the amount of learning you can do and experiences you get to have, it can't be beat. The sim rig is a fraction of the cost of doing any of the other sports seriously. And I think for me, it's really refined how I drive in real life. When I went to Banging Gears in February, I did 500 laps on that sim rig for Las Vegas Speedway. And that gave me such a competitive edge over my competition during that show. It was absolutely nuts. Now, what do I plan on doing more in 2024? I really want to get refined on the sim for racing to get more track time in 2024 and hopefully the S2000. But you'll have to let me know if you agree or disagree or what your experience has been in the 3 or 4 groups that I just talked about. And if you have a sim rig and you are iRacing, drop your account below. I'm AlexMartini with 2 underscores. We'll see you on the next one. Adios.